Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 130th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Wazir Dandan continued to Zau al-Muluk, and the father of Taj al-Muluk spake to him on this wise. O my son, her father is a king, whose land is far from ours. So put away this thought. Go into thy mother's palace, where are 500 maidens like moons, and whichsoever of them pleaseth thee, take her, or else we will seek thee in marriage some other king's daughter, fairer than the Lady Dunya. Answered Taj al-Muluk, O my father, I desire none other, for she it is who wrought the gazelles which I saw, and there is no help but that I have her. Else I will flee into the world and the waste, and I will slay myself for her sake. Then said his father, Have patience with me, till I send to her sire and demand her in marriage, and win thee thy wish, and as I did for myself and thy mother. Haply Allah will bring thee to thy desire, and if her parent will not consent, I will make his kingdom quake under him with an army, whose rear shall be with me, whilst its van shall be open upon him. Then he sent for the youth Aziz, and asked him, O my son, tell me, dost thou know the way to the Camphor Islands? And he answered, Yes. And the king said, I desire of thee that thou fare with my wazir thither. Replied Aziz, I hear and obey, O king of the age. Whereupon the king summoned his minister and said to him, Devise me some device whereby my son's affair might be rightly managed, and fare thou forth to the Camphor Islands, and demand of the king his daughter in marriage for my son Taj al-Muluk. The wazir replied, Hearkening and obedience. Then Taj al-Muluk returned to his dwelling place, and his love and longing redoubled, and the delay seemed endless to him. And when the night darkened around him, he wept and sighed and complained and repeated this poetry. Ah, dark falls the night. My tears unaided rail, and fiercest flames of love my heart assail. Ask thou the nights of me, and they shall tell, and I find aught but weep and wail. Long night awake, I watch the stars, that while pour down my cheeks the tears like dropping hail. And lone and lorn I'm grown with none to aid, for kith and kin the lost lover fail. And when he had ended his reciting, he swooned away, and did not recover his senses till the morning, at which time there came to him one of his father's eunuchs, and standing at his head, summoned him to the king's presence. So he went with him, and his father, seeing that his pallor had increased, exhorted him to be patient, and promised him union with her he loved. Then he equipped Aziz and the wazir, and supplied them with presents, and they set out and fared on day and night, till they drew near the Isle of Camphor, where they halted on the banks of a stream, and the minister dispatched a messenger to acquaint the king of his arrival. The minister hurried forwards, and had not been gone more than an hour before they saw the king's chamberlains and emirs advancing towards them, and to meet them at a parsang's distance from the city, and escort them into the royal presence. They laid their gifts before the king, and became his guests for 3 days. On the 4th day the wazir rose, and going to the king, stood between his hands, and acquainted him with the object which induced his visit. Whereat he was perplexed for an answer, inasmuch as his daughter misliked men and disliked marriage. So he bowed his head groundwards awhile, and then raised it, and calling one of his eunuchs, said to him, Go to thy mistress, the Lady Dunya, and repeat to her what thou hast heard, and the purport of this wazir's coming. So the eunuch went forth, and returning after a time, said to the king, O king of the age, when I went into the Lady Dunya and told her what I had heard, she was wroth with exceeding wrath, and rose at me with a staff, designing to break my head. So I fled from her, and she said to me, If my father force me to wed, then whomso I wed I will slay. Then said her sire to the wazir and Aziz, Ye have heard, and now you know all. So let your king wot of it, and give my salutations, and say that my daughter misliketh men, and disliketh marriage. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 131st night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that King Shahriman thus addressed the Wazir and Aziz. Salute your king for me, and inform him of what you have heard, namely, that my daughter misliketh marriage. So they turned away unsuccessful, and ceased not faring on till they rejoined the king, and told him what had passed. Whereupon he commanded the chief officer to summon the troops, and get them ready for marching and campaigning. But the Wazir said to him, O my liege, do not thus. The king is not at fault, because when his daughter learned our business, she sent a message saying, If my father force me to wed whomsoever I would, I will slay and myself after him. So the refusal cometh from her. When the king heard his minister's words, he feared for Taj al-Muluk, and said, Verily, if I make war on the king of the Camphor Island and carry off his daughter, she will kill herself, and it will avail me naught. Then he told his son how the case stood, who, hearing it, said, Oh, my father, I cannot live without her, so I will go to her and contrive to get to her, even though I die in the attempt, and this only will I do, and nothing else. Asked his father, How wilt thou go to her? And he answered, I will go in the guise of a merchant. Then said the king, If thou must go, and there is no help for it, take with thee the Wazir and Aziz. Then he brought out money from his treasury, and made ready for his son's merchandise to value of 100,000 dinars. The two had settled upon this action, and when the dark hours came, Taj al-Muluk and Aziz went to Aziz's lodgings, and there passed that night. And the prince was heart-smitten, taking no pleasure in food or in sleep, for melancholy was heavy upon him, and he was agitated with longing for his beloved. So he besought the Creator that he would vouchsafe to unite him with her, and he wept, and he groaned, and he wailed, and he began versifying. Union, the severance ended, shall I see some day? Then shall my tears this love-lorn lot of me portray. While night and all goes forgets, I only minded thee, and thou didst gar me wake while all forgetful lay. And when his improvising came to an end, he wept with sore weeping, and Aziz wept with him, for that he remembered his cousin. And they both ceased not to shed tears till morning dawned, whereupon Taj al-Muluk rose, and went to farewell his mother in travelling dress. She asked him of his case, and he repeated the story to her. So she gave him 50,000 gold pieces, and bade him adieu. And so he fared forth. She put up prayers for his safety, and for his union with his lover and his friends. Then he betook himself to his father, and asked his leave to depart. The king granted him permission, and presenting him with another 50,000 dinars, bade set up a tent for him without the city. And they pitched a pavilion wherein travellers abode 2 days. Then all set out on their journey. Now Taj al-Muluk delighted in the company of Aziz, and said to him, O my brother, henceforth I can never part from thee. Replied Aziz, And I am of like mind, and fain would I die under thy feet, but, O my brother, my heart is concerned for my mother. When we shall have won our wish, said the prince, there will be naught save what is well. Now the Wazir continued, charging Taj al-Muluk to be patient, whilst Aziz entertained him every evening with talk, and recited poetry to him, and diverted him with histories and anecdotes. And so they fared on diligently night and day for 2 whole months, till the way became tedious to Taj al-Muluk, and the fire of desire redoubled on him, and he broke out, The road is longsome. Grow my grief and need, while on my breast love fires forever feed. Goal of my hopes, sole object of my wish, by him who molded man from drop of seed, I hear such loads of longing for thy love. Dearest, this weight of all Sham mounts exceeds. O lady of my world, love does me die. No breath of life is left for life to plead, but for the union hope that lends me strength. My weary limbs were weak this way to speed. When he had finished his verses, he wept, and Aziz wept with him from a wounded heart, till the minister was moved to pity by their tears, and said, O my lord, be of good cheer, and keep thy eyes clear of tears. There will be naught save what is well, quoth Taj al-Muluk. O Wazir, indeed I am weary of the length of the way. Tell me how far we are yet distant from the city. Quoth Aziz, but a little way remaineth to us. Then they continued their journey, cutting across river vales and plains, worlds and stony wastes, till one night, as Taj al-Muluk was sleeping, he dreamt that his beloved was with him, and that he embraced her and pressed her to his bosom. And he awoke quivering, shivering with pain, delirious with emotion, and improvised these verses. Dear friend, my eyes, my tears, I flow these cheeks adown, with longsome pain and pine my sorrows crown. I plain like keening woman child bereft, and as night falls like widowed dove I groan, and blow the breeze from land where thou dost wone. I find, O sunburnt earth, sweet coolness blown. Peace be with thine, my love, while zephyrs breathe, and cushat flies and turtles makes her moan. And when he had ended his versifying, the Wazir came to him and said, Rejoice! This is a good sign. So be of good cheer, and keep thine eyes cool and clear, for thou shalt surely compass thy desire. And Aziz also came to him, and exhorted him to patience, and applied himself to divert him, talking with him, and telling him tales. So they pressed on, marching day and night, other 2 months, till they appeared to them one day at sunrise, some white thing in the distance. And Taj al-Muluk said to Aziz, What is yonder whiteness? He replied, O my lord, yonder is the castle of crystal, and that is the city thou seekest. At this the prince rejoiced, and they ceased not faring forwards till they drew near the city. And as they approached it, Taj al-Muluk joyed with exceeding joy, and his cares ceased from him. They entered in trader guise, the king's son being habited as a merchant of importance, and repaired to a great khan known as the merchant's lodging. Quoth Taj al-Muluk to Aziz, Is this the resort of merchants? And quoth he, Yes, 'tis the khan wherein I lodged before. So they alighted there, and making their baggage camels kneel, unloaded them, and stored their goods in the warehouse. They abode 4 days for rest, when the Wazir advised that they should hire a large house. To this they asserted, and they found them a spacious house fitted up for festivities, where they took up their abode. And the Wazir and Aziz studied to devise some device for Taj al-Muluk, who remained in a state of perplexity, knowing not what to do. Now the minister could think of nothing but that he should set up as a merchant on change and in the market of fine stuffs. So he turned to the prince and his companion and said to them, Know ye that if we tarry here on this wise, assuredly we shall not win our wish nor attain our aim. But as something occurred to me whereby, if Allah please, we shall find our advantage. Replied Taj al-Muluk and Aziz, Do what seemeth good to thee. Indeed, there is a blessing on that grey beard, more especially on those who, like myself, are conversant with the conduct of affairs. So tell us what occurreth to thy mind. Rejoined the Wazir, It is my counsel that we hire thee a shop in the stuff bazaar, where thou mayest sit to sell and buy. Every one great and small hath need of silken stuff and other cloths. So if thou patiently abide in the shop, thine affairs will prosper, Inshallah, more by token as thou art comely of aspect. Make, however, Aziz thy factor, and set him within the shop to hand thee the pieces of cloth and stuffs. When Taj al-Muluk heard these words, he said, This rede is right, and a right pleasant recking. So he took out a handsome suit of merchant's weed, and putting it on, set out for the bazaar, followed by his servants, to whom one of them he had given 1,000 dinars wherewith to fit up the shop. They ceased not walking till they came to the stuff market, and when the merchants saw Taj al-Muluk's beauty and grace, they were confounded, and went about saying, Ho! Of a truth, Rizwan hath opened the gates of paradise, and left them unguarded, so that this youth of passing comeliness hath come forth. And others said, Peradventure, this is one of the angels. Now, when they went in among the traders, they asked for the shop of the overseer of the market, and the merchants directed them thereto. So they delayed not to repair thither, and to salute him. And he and those who were with him rose to them, and seated them, and made much of them, because of the wazir, whom they saw to be a man in years and of reverend aspect. And viewing the youths, Aziz and Taj al-Muluk, in his company, they said to one another, "Doubtless our sheikh is the father of these two youths." Then quoth the wazir, "Who among you is the overseer of this market?" "This is he," replied they. And behold, he came forward, and the wazir observed how narrowly, and saw him to be an old man of grave and dignified carriage, with eunuchs and servants and black slaves. The syndic greeted them with the greetings of friends, and was lavish in his attentions in them. Then he seated them by his side, and asked them, "Have ye business which we may have the happiness of transacting?" The minister answered, "Yes. I am an old man, stricken in years, and have with me these two youths, with whom I travelled through every town and country, entering no great city without tarrying there a full year, that they might take their pleasure in viewing it, and come to know its citizens. Now I have visited your town, intending to sojourn here for a while, so I want of thee a handsome shop in the best situation, wherein I may establish them, that they may traffic and learn to buy and sell, and to give and take, whilst they divert thyself with the sight of the place, and become familiar with the usage of its people." Quoth the overseer, "There is no harm in that." And looking at the two youths, he was delighted with them, and affected them with warm affection. Now he was a great connoisseur of bewitching glances, preferring the love of boys to that of girls, and inclining to the sour rather than the sweet of love. So he said to himself, "This indeed is fine game. Glory be to him who created and fashioned them out of vile water." And rising, stood before them like a servant to do them honor. Then he went out and made ready for them a shop, which was in the very midst of the exchange. Nor was there any larger or better in the bazaar, for it was spacious and handsomely decorated, and fitted with shelves of ivory and ebony wood. After this, he delivered the keys to the wazir, who was dressed as an old merchant, saying, "Take them, O my lord, and Allah make it a blessed abiding place to thy two sons." The minister took the keys, and the three, returning to the khan where they had alighted, bade the servants transport to the shop all their goods and stuffs. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 132nd night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the wazir took the shop keys, he went accompanied by Taj al-Muluk and Aziz to the khan, and they bid the servants transport to the shop all their goods and stuffs and valuables, of which they had great store worth, treasures of money. And when all this was duly done, they went to the shop, and ordered their stock in trade, and slept there that night. As soon as morning morrowed, the wazir took the two young men to the hammam bath, where they washed them clean, and they donned rich dresses, and scented themselves with essence, and enjoyed themselves to the utmost. Now each of the youths was passing fair to look upon, and in the bath they were even as saith the poet, "Luck to the rubber whose deft hand o'erflies a frame begotten twixt the lymph and light. He shows the thermography of his craft, and gathers musk in form of camphordite." After bathing they left, and when the overseer heard that they had gone to the hammam, he sat down to await the twain, and presently they came up to him like two gazelles. Their cheeks were reddened by the bath, and their eyes were darker than ever. Their faces shone, and they were as two lustrous moons, or two branches of fruit laden. Now when he saw them, he rose forthright and said to them, "O my sons, may your bath profit you always." Whereupon Taj al-Muluk replied with the sweetest of speech, "Allah be bountiful to thee, O my father. Why didst thou not come with us and bathe in our company?" Then they both bent over his right hand and kissed it, and walked before him to the shop, to entreat his honorably and show him respect, for that was the chief of the merchants and the market, and he had done them kindness in giving them the shop. When he saw their hips quivering as they moved, desire and longing redoubled on him, and he puffed and he snorted and he devoured them with his eyes, for he could not contain himself. When they heard what he had said, they conjured him to enter the bath with them a second time. He could hardly believe his ears, and hastening thither went in with them. The wazir had not yet left the bath, so when he overheard of the overseer's coming, he came out and meeting him in the middle of the bath hall, invited him to enter. He refused, whereupon Taj al-Muluk, taking him by the hand, walked on one side, and Aziz by the other, and carried him into a cabinet, and that impure old man submitted him, whilst his emotions increased on him. He would have refused, albeit this was what he desired. But the minister said to him, "They are thy sons. Let them wash thee and cleanse thee. Allah preserve them to thee," exclaimed the overseer. "By Allah, your coming and of those with you bring down blessings and good luck upon our city." And he repeated these couplets. Thou camest, and green grew the hills anew, and sweetest bloom to the bridegroom threw, while aloud cried earth and her earthborns too, "Hail, and welcome who comest with grace to endue." They thanked him for this, and Taj al-Muluk ceased not to wash him, and Aziz to pour water over him, and he thought his soul was in paradise. When they had made an end of his service, he blessed them, and sat by the side of the wazir, talking but gazing forward at the youths. Presently the servants brought them towels, and they dried themselves and donned their dress. Then they went out, and the minister turned to the cynic and said to him, "O my lord, verily the bath is the paradise of this world." Replied the overseer, "Allah vouchsafe to thee such paradise, and health to thy sons, and guard them from the evil eye. Do you remember aught that the eloquent had said in praise of the bath?" Quoth Taj al-Muluk, "I will repeat for thee a pair of couplets," and he recited, "The life of the bath is the joy of man's life, save that time is short for us there to hide. A heaven were irksome if it were to stay, a hell delightful at entering tide." When he ended his recital, quoth Aziz, "And I also remember two couplets in praise of the bath." The overseer said, "Let me hear them." So he repeated the following: A house where flowers from stones of granite grow, seen at its best when hot with living love, thou deemest it hell, but here, forsooth, is heaven, and some like suns and moons within it show. And when he had ended his recital, his verses pleased the overseer, and he wondered at his words, and savored their grace, and said to them, "By Allah, ye possess both beauty and eloquence. But now listen to me, you twain." And he began chanting and recited in song the following verses: "O joy of hell and heaven, whose tormentory in quickens frame and soul with lively gree! I marvel so delightsome house to view, and most when 'neath its kindled fires I see sojourn of blessed visitors withal, pools on them pour down tears unceasingly." Then his eyes sight roamed and browsed on the gardens of their beauty, and he repeated these two couplets: "I went to the house of the keeper man. He was out, but others to smile began. I entered his heaven, and then his hell, and I said, 'Bless Malik and bless Rizwan.'" When they heard these verses, they were charmed, and the overseer invited them to his house, but they declined and returned to their own place to rest from the great heat of the bath. So they took their ease there, and ate and drank, and passed that night in perfect solace and satisfaction, till morning dawned, when they arose from sleep, and making their lesson ablution, prayed with the dawn prayer, and drank the morning draught. As soon as the sun had risen and the shops and markets opened, they arose, and going forth from their place to the bazaar, opened their shop, which their servants had already furnished after the handsome fashion, and had spread with prayer rugs and silken carpets, and placed on the divans a pair of mattresses, each worth 100 dinars. On each mattress they had disposed a rug of skin fit for a king, and edged with fringe of gold. And amiddlemost the shop stood a third seat, still richer even as the place required. Then Taj al-Muluk sat down on one of the divans, and Aziz on another, whilst the wazir seated himself on that in the centre, and the servants stood before them. The city people soon heard of them and crowded about them, so that they sold some of their goods and not a few of their stuffs. For Taj al-Muluk's beauty and loveliness had become the talk of the town. Thus they passed a trifle of time, and every day the people flocked to them, and pressed upon them more and more, till the wazir, after exhorting Taj al-Muluk to keep his secret, commended him to the care of Aziz, and went home that he might commune with himself alone, and cast about for some contrivance which might profit them. Meanwhile the two young men sat talking, and Taj al-Muluk said to Aziz, "Haply someone will come from the Lady Dunya." So he ceased not expecting this chance days and nights, but his heart was troubled, and he knew neither sleep nor rest. For desire had got the mastery of him, and the love and the longing were sore upon him, so that he renounced the solace of sleep and abstained from meat and drink. Yet ceased he not to be like the moon on the night of fullness. Now, one day as he sat in the shop, behold, there came up an ancient woman. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my tales for the day, until it be morrow.